The French have a knack of doing things differently. So when Renault set out to make a small car for India, they didn't want to be boxed in by traditional body styles or even seating configurations. What they've come up with is something really interesting. It's called the Triber. The Triber is a very different take on the small car formula. The main talking point is seating for 7 passengers. And even in look, the Triber is a break from the norm. I'm using the term small car a bit loosely here because even though the Triber measures less than 4 meters in length, it looks pretty substantial. Its 1.7 meter plus width and 1.6 meter plus height make the Triber about as wide and tall as a Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza. However, the Triber's trump card is its 2.6 meter long wheelbase, which is amongst the largest of all sub-4-meter models. Interestingly enough, the choice of engine had a role to play in the Triber's short bonnet and large passenger cell proportions. Early into the project, Renault decided to scrap a diesel engine option, and the space saved by opting for a small petrol engine was made available to the passengers. Renault hasn't categorized the Triber's body style, though perhaps a crossover describes the shape best. You'll find many SUV-inspired elements such as scuff plates at the front and rear, cladding around the wheel arches and chunky runners at the sides. The roof rails with a load capacity of 50 kilograms also add some attitude to the design and also smartly mask the stepped roof. What undoubtedly also helps the Triber's stance is its 182mm ground clearance. The Triber conforms to Renault's global styling language and in effect has a very international look to it. The Renault lozenge takes pride of place up front, and the manner the shapely headlights with their projector elements fuse into the grille is also nice. LED DRLs are also part of the package. Adding further distinction to the Triber is the glass house that has a distinct kink at the C-pillar to help break up the van-like window line. An upright tail with large wraparound tail lamps brings up the rear. As you can see, the Triber's tailgate extends fairly low and there's much to speak about the practicality too. When you open the Renault Triber's boot lid, you'll find all of 84 litres of luggage space with all 7 seats up. Now that can be increased substantially to 625 litres. The last row of seats are split 50-50 and can be removed all together and independently of each other. It's a 2-step process and I'll just show you how it's done. So step 1 is to remove the backrest, and step 2, fairly straightforward, is to remove the seat base. Now with 6 seats in place, it's got 320 litres of space, and you can do the same thing to the 7th seat to increase luggage room to 625 litres. And in case you're wondering, the spare wheel is positioned under the body. So it works as a compact cargo van, but does it work as a micro mini bus? I'll start from the last row of seats. So now to test access to the 3rd row and the 3rd row itself. So this is a fairly simple 1-lever operation. And so space in the back is not bad at all. Now this seat is set to the middle setting. This one is extended all the way back. Now I can't say I have lots and lots of room here, but you have to remember I'm just under 6 feet tall, so I'm a fairly large adult. However, what I can tell you is that 3 average-sized adults can sit one behind the other in the Triber, and that is a huge achievement for something so small. The seating position is a bit knees up, but there are other things to like. I like the fact that you get your own aircon vents. The windows are fairly large, and what is a bit of a surprise is that there's even reasonable amount of headroom for someone my size. But at the same time, things are not perfect. I don't like the fact that you only get static reel seat belts at the back, and what's also a bit disconcerting is how close the rear window is to your head. Shifting focus to the middle row. Now how is that for a wide opening door? Really helps ingress and egress. Now, first impressions of the second row seat, I must say, are quite good. It's got this theatre-like seating, so you sit slightly higher than the seats in front, and that helps visibility. What also helps in this area are the nice and large windows. This is not a cabin that's meant to seat 3 abreast. It would be a bit of a squeeze, but 2 passengers will find themselves really comfortable here. What's surprisingly good are the seats. They are quite flat, but supportive at just the right places. As for room, now my seat is set at the middle position, and there's a lot of range of movement. I can take it all the way back, generate few more inches of legroom, or I can free up more space for the passengers in the back. What also helps the comfort levels is the option to recline the backrest. You do miss a center armrest in the middle row, but thankfully rear AC vents on the B pillars are included and do a reasonable job of keeping the cabin cool. There are plenty of positives to speak of at the front too. Renault Triber drivers will like their elevated driving position, and actually speaking, there's a lot else to like about the cabin as well. What's caught my eye first and foremost is the level of quality. Now forget about the quid, the Triber's level of quality is up there or perhaps even better than what you get in the Capture. Now there are no soft touch plastics as such, but the plastics do have a hard wearing look about them. This thick slab of faux metal gives a sense of robustness to the look, and the dual tone touch also works quite well. If you look closely, there's some nice details such as this bezel around the start stop button. The multiple fabrics around the seats also look quite premium, and I also really like the steering. It's not got steering mounted controls, but it does look like it belongs to a pricier car. What also works well is the new 8-inch touchscreen that's a whole lot nicer to use than Renault's older 7-inch unit. It's slicker to use, comes with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and there's also an eco rating that scores you for efficient driving. The part digital instruments add some cool value too. The large MID with the speedo readout comes flanked by a unique pizza slice-like tacho that lights up with the revs. In terms of features, the Triber gets the basics, and what's a welcome inclusion are side airbags on the top spec RX-Z trim. A reverse camera and remote-like key are part of the package too. Of the other things, front seat comfort is fairly good, but the single-piece backrests aren't quite wide enough for larger frames. And there's more to speak of. The 3 rows of seats are just one aspect of the Triber's practicality. It also scores really well on in-cabin storage space. Now all 4 doors get a 1-litre bottle holder each, but that apart, there's more space for smaller items. For instance, there's a little tray under the aircon controls. There's a little bay here to keep your mobile phone. There are not 1 but 2 glove boxes, one on top and one below, which is cooled. And what also adds to the experience is this little bay between the front seats, which is also cooled. All well and good, but how does the Renault Triber drive? As mentioned already, the Triber does not get a diesel engine. The Triber comes powered by Renault's 1-litre energy engine that also powers international models like the Clio. The engine is a development of the 999cc 3-cylinder unit from the Quid and gets variable valve timing on both intake and exhaust sides. It makes 72 horsepower at 6,250 rpm and 96 Nm of torque at 3,500 rpm. ARAI fuel efficiency stands at 20 km to the litre. With just 72 horsepower on call, the Renault Triber's 1-litre engine isn't what you'd call powerful for a car that has the job of lugging as many as 7 passengers. As you'd expect, performance isn't sprightly, and there's also a bit of hesitation at really low speeds, but you also won't have a problem keeping up with the flow of traffic either. Coming to the bigger area of concern. Now the big question is, how does the Renault Triber perform with a full load of passengers? Well, if you keep to the right gear at the right time, you'll find that the Triber chugs along quite effectively. What you do miss is that mid-range punch. Power delivery is absolutely flat. On long climbs particularly, you'll have to keep the engine in the power band. The good news is that a turbocharged version of the engine is also in the works, and an AMT auto is also coming in early 2020. The standard fit 5-speed manual does feel a bit mechanical in its shifts, and the clutch's high bite point also takes some getting used to. The powertrain loses points elsewhere too. Refinement isn't this engine's strong suit. You can hear the engine at all times, it sounds a bit coarse, it sounds a bit harsh, and when you do extend it further, there's no escaping that 3-cylinder thrumminess. On the plus side, true to Renault's DNA, ride comfort is really impressive. As standard, the Triber gets 14-inch wheels, but our car has the optional 15 inches, and the tyres do round off the bumps at low speeds really well. There is some firmness in the setup, but the suspension does feel robust, and the Triber is fairly easy to drive too. The Triber steering is really light, so it's easy to twirl at low speeds, which makes it quite user-friendly, but it feels a bit video game console-like, so there's no real feel or feedback from the steering wheel. Even so, the Triber feels more sure-footed than most cars of its size. The Renault Triber is set up on the firmer side, and the advantage of that is at high speeds it feels fairly planted. Now remember, this is a car that weighs less than 1 ton, but it feels pretty sure-footed and drives with fairly mature manners. So how much does the Triber cost and where does it fit in? The Triber range starts at 4.95 lakh rupees ex-showroom and tops off at 6.49 lakh rupees. The pricing puts it in the heart of the traditional hatchback segment, making it all the more interesting. The Triber is a small car with a difference. Its difference lies in a practicality, a versatility, a flexibility that no other small car at this price point can match. Use it as a 7-seater, use it as a 6-seater with some room for luggage, or use it as a 5-seater with lots of room for luggage. The Triber will meet your needs really well. Now, it's not perfect. The 1-litre engine does come across as a bit meek at times, but coming soon there will be a more powerful turbocharged version of this engine. An AMT automatic is also in the works. Even as is, the Triber comes across as a fairly convincing package and one that you should consider quite seriously.